these UFO stories that have a little bit of a twist. The twist in this one is it appears that people in our Air Force are trying to weasel uh, this whole thing. Here's what's going on. And if they are, by the way, if our government knows more than they've told us, then somebody should be called to the carpet for that, go to jail. We're not infants, for God's sakes. They work for us. It's our airspace. What's going on? If they know. I'm going to assume they don't know, but anyway, First Lieutenant Eugene Moncla, he was with the U.S. Air Force. He disappeared while he was performing an intercept over Lake Superior back in 1953. This incident is called the Kinross Incident. He was on temporary assignment there. The Air Force reported that he had crashed into something, and then they said, well, it's a Royal Canadian Air Force aircraft, and that's what happened, and blah, blah. Well, the Canadians, even today, say that's simply not true. We were involved in no accidents of any kind with the U.S. or anybody else over Lake Superior. In fact, apparently none at all with their Air Force, so we don't know what you guys are talking about. So that's the first fib our Air Force needs to be telling us. Here's the factual background. On November 23, 1953, Air Defense scrambled some jets because something unusual was flying in the air over Sioux Locks. So a jet piloted by Moncla and Second Lieutenant Robert Wilson scrambled to find out what's going on. They got up there, but their radar stopped working. So they couldn't track this thing, but the operators on the ground could track it. And they told them where to go. They directed the jet where to go to find this thing. Suddenly, Monclair's jet simply, at 8,000 feet, he comes face to face, figuratively speaking, with whatever it was, and he disappears. Ground control was tracking the jet and the UFO on the ground with blips on radar screens. So the two blips merged at some point. So ground control figured, well, that he's either flown over it or under the target or whatever, and in a few seconds he'll reappear. Well, he didn't reappear. Now there was just one blip, and it's the UFO blip and not our guy. So they make immediate contacts, radio contact. There's no response. They send out, the U.S. and Canada sent out planes to find these guys to look. We sent out boats because we assumed they went into the water. But there was a terrible storm, so it killed the search. A pilot, U.S. pilot, said later, he reported later that he believed he heard a transmission from the missing jet about 40 minutes after it disappeared. Then this story came up in 1968 that the UF that said, well, we found parts of a jet, an F-89, same kind that was missing in 1953. And they never published what kind of parts it was. They just said, well, it's a jet, take us on our word. The Canadian government, they were told, well, the Canadian, it landed on the Canadian side, but the Canadians found nothing washed on their shore again. So in 2006, this is, I think, a third attempt by the Air Force or somebody to kill this story that a UFO ate one of our planes or whatever the hell it did to it. This guy named Preston Miller sends a UFO researcher, Francis Ridge, a quote from an AP story. He said was an AP story. And it claimed that a group of Michigan divers had discovered Montclair's F-89 that vanished in 53. And the location of the discovery is at the bottom of Lake Superior, approximately where he had disappeared on radar. In other words, it sank straight down. And it contained a link to something called the Great Lakes Dive Company that was working on this project. Well, this guy Ridge posted on the internet, on a UFO site, and everyone's all excited. They thought, well, it wasn't a UFO, it was an honest to gosh mistake. Some reporters contacted the Great Lakes Dive Company, and they were told, well, look, you need to contact our representative, Adam Jimenez, who he can discuss everything you need to know about this. Make a long story short, when reporters tried to contact Jimenez, he Jimenez initially gave them some vague information about we're sure we found it and all that stuff. But when they dug further, he disappeared. He is to this day nowhere to be found. And then so they went back to the Great Lakes Dive Company, and they were nowhere to be found. In fact, their website was gone. So again, I think a ham-fisted attempt to make us believe everything's just fine. I tend not to believe these things just acceptedly, but this one's a weird one, isn't it?